Hey, you guys asked me yesterday what you would get in compensation for Dak.
Yeah.
I reached out to some guys about that.
Nice.
Well, I just wanted, some guys answered back. I did it kind of late today, so I should have.
Okay.
But just the early statements from these guys.
Okay.
Everybody thinks you could get 2 1s out of this one for sure. But one guy thinks that you might have to look at the deal where what Indianapolis did, where you take like a 2 now and with it being a 1 if you get to a certain level. He says some teams are thinking about what Indianapolis did as a kind of a way to go, because they're all saying that you have to give them a top level contract and compensation to make this deal happen. So that's, everybody's thinking that, okay, well, you give them a 2, you're having to pay the whole contract. And then if he plays, which he probably will, you have success with him, which you probably will, then that's how you get your 1. But the majority of the gang of 7, they said you could get 2 1s. And that's, where, and I actually had one guy tell me, he says, listen, if you get 2 1s, you might want to do that one. So.
Oh, what a hater.
So do you go to Dak and say, hey, let's get something done, but if not, let's get you traded somewhere you want to go?
Yeah,
because you don't want to let him walk after this
year.
No,
I absolutely. I think that's where we're at right now with this whole thing. And I want to believe that, and Todd Archer's starting to report that there's conversations between the two. Let's see if they're meaningful conversations. And, I've always believed that if they could sit down, or however they're going to do this, with the pandemic, heck, you can sit across the desk from somebody and talk about things or make calls or whatever you have to do. I just felt like that they could. Let's see how motivated Todd France is. That's the thing. And now, but if I'm the Cowboys and you talk about putting feelers out there, okay, well, hey, what would you guys give for Dak? Well, we'd go the Indy route. Okay, thanks very much, man. Have a good week. Okay, call another guy. Well,
that's disrespectful.
Well, that's how these operate, and like I say, you hope that somebody on another end doesn't leak what you're doing making these calls, because that happens in our business now. It happens. So anyway, but if the Cowboys want to move on from this, there could very well be some teams that are very interested in doing that.
I hope they're aggressive about that. I hope they're aggressively pursuing that possibility if they can't get a deal done. I think as an organization, they have to pick a day on the calendar. And maybe it's before the draft, maybe it's after the draft, but before July 15th when the tag locks in for the year. But find a day and say, if we make it to here, dang it, we have to work with Dak and his agent and other teams to try to create a trade. And if going public with it is necessary, then so be it. But we can't let 2021 play out and have Dak just walk. That's too good of an asset.
Jeff, let me ask you a question. Would you wait till April 1st, and that way that you would have teams would have been able to evaluate all their quarterbacks on the board and got through all that list? And then, because maybe if they don't know all the quarterbacks yet, maybe they would not want to do anything with you?
Yeah, probably. I would be waiting until look, I hope they get a deal done in the next week, but I don't think you have a real life deadline until draft time. But if you can't get something done by draft time, you got to tell Todd France and Dak, like, hey, we can't risk the fact that you're apparently wanting to leave us, so we're picking a guy. What do you want? Do you want to go somewhere?
Yeah.
Do you want to play in front of our rookie for a year? Because you're announcing to us you're not going to be here. I think that's how you got to negotiate, as on the Jones side of it.
Right.
And on the Dak side of it, you're like, yeah, well, blow my doors off, because free agency I'm staring down the barrel of it.
Yeah, sure is. So he's got a lot of leverage. He's absolutely
right. Earlier today, Bryan Broaddus talked about his gang of 7 suggesting that, hey, you can get 2 first-round picks for Dak. Correct?
Yes, sir.
If that's all I can get for Dak, then I'm really signing him here in the next 2 weeks, because that's not good enough for me. I would need much, much more than that.
Oh, so you'd use that as the impetus for, maybe caving a little bit and doing what it takes to get the deal done? I was looking at it like you got to trade him. If you're not going to be able to get a deal done, I think 2 1s would be much better than just letting him walk after the next season.
Yep.
Definitely. If you can't get a deal done, and now we're sitting here on March 8th, You do, because then the draft's coming around. So it's a doomsday scenario where you go, okay, it's like in the NBA when a guy's in his last year of his contract, General. Well, he's going to leave. Victor Oladipo in Houston. He's going to leave us after this year. We might as well trade him now.
Yeah.
The urgency for the Cowboys to do a contract, they are literally on the clock. But Bryan, my point with Bryan Broaddus' two firsts is Peter King just got done telling me that Deshaun Watson is basically worth 4 or 6 valuable pieces. He made a Washington scenario. By the way, Washington has no interest in doing this. Chase Young, another defensive starter, 2 firsts and 2 seconds. So I'm not saying that I get that kind of price tag for Dak, but 2 1s isn't enough. So Gavin, you get what I'm saying.
Wow,
if the Cowboys are listening to Bryan Broaddus and saying that's the temperature, well then I don't want just 2 1s for Dak. Therefore, I want to sign him.
Yeah, the problem is though you haven't been able to sign him. And likely he is going to play on this tag, and you're going to not get anything for him other than a compensatory 3. So if you don't sign him, you better come up with a plan to get something for him. And whether it's if Dak was signed, I can understand the reason why Watson's haul is so good is because he's signed. That's why.
You get him on the cheap.
You get him on the cheap. You're paying the freight. Not only are you giving 2 1s for Dak, but you're also paying $40-something million a year.
Yeah,
you get Deshaun like 30% under market value.
Exactly. There's a little bit better deal signing or having trading for Watson than it is Dak right now.
That's a great point. We've heard Dak say all the right things for 2+ years. We've heard Jerry and Steven come on the fan and say all the right things. Again, I'm willing to play naive Uncle Fish. I believe them. I think they do want to do this. And I think that when Jerry Jones started telling me 31 years ago, Mr. Mack, deadlines make deals. This is what he's talking about. Today is the opening of a deadline. March 9th represents a deadline, and the NFL draft represents a deadline. And not just because what if Dak leaves? There's also this factor. And General, I'll close with this one.
Okay.
You've got to know as soon as possible, or you can't do any other business.
Yeah.
You can't sign other teams' free agents. You can't even sign your own free agents until you do something with Dak. Now, you can make room long-term contract-wise. They could, in a snap, restructure Amari Cooper, and then that would give them the room to create a long-term contract. But it would be more complicated than that to create the room for a tag. You'd have to move this, and move this. If, by the way, I hear they're thinking of doing a restructure on Amari Cooper, you can start throwing your parade, because that means that Dak Prescott's about to sign.
Well, I appreciate the insights, Fish. I guess I'm left with more of a positive feeling, even though it's a quarterback crisis that they find themselves in. I think we're pretty close to a resolution here. The tag deadline here in 2 weeks from today. And then do you guys feel like by the time we get to the draft, we'll be knowing one way or another, because the Cowboys won't be able to go through that without making a decision?
I do, and the good feeling,
April
for lack of a
29th.
better word, is because Jerry's slogan to me from 31 years ago and since said a million times isn't deadlines mean you pass on deals. It's deadlines make deals. And here we are.